He sees that he's, compared to this holy God that he is standing in front of, he's filthy. And he pronounces judgment on himself. And you think about Jesus getting into the boat, telling Peter to, and the disciples to cast their nets, and Peter saying, Lord, we fished all night long, we haven't caught anything. And Jesus says, well, go ahead and do it. And Peter puts the net down and pulls these just an amazing amount of fish into the boat. So the boat begins to sink. And what does Peter do? Oh, Lord, great! We ought to use you to be to be in our business here. We ought to use you so we can really catch a lot of stuff. But we could, this money we get, Lord, from the miracles that you do here, we could really use to really spread the gospel, right? No, what happens when Peter sees this? He falls down and he says, "Go away from me, Lord, for I'm a sinner." And yet, what does Kim Walker-Smith see in her vision? Well, Jesus is, just wants to pour his love out on her. He wants to dance around in excitement, especially, and the Father as well. And by the way, Jesus clapping his hands, jumping up and down. You're going to hear this stuff, weird stuff. And this is Jesus culture. This is what our kids are getting into. This is, and again, you listen to the music and you would never know that this is what they believe and this is what they teach and this is what they think. But Satan is very deceptive, isn't he? So I'm going to play for you now the Kim Walker-Smith video, and I probably am not going to have time for Judah Smith. That's going to be probably done in another time or another week because I'm running out of time right now. But I want to play this video clip, and I want you to listen to her alleged encounter with Jesus. I might chime in a little bit here, but you're going to see that this is just as wacky. I think it's more wacky than the glory cloud. You'll hear what I'm talking about. So here it is. I guess this was an interview done. There's another video, almost identical, with an almost identical testimony by her, where she gives it on stage. This is not the one where she gives it on stage to an audience and you hear people cheering in the background. She's actually sitting on a couch in this video, and she gives a little more details here than she does, I think, in the other video. But this is her testimony, her alleged encounter with Jesus. This is Kim Walker-Smith from Jesus Culture.
My eyes closed, and I just felt so weak, and I just kind of felt like I hit this point where I finally just let go and just surrendered. And I was just like, this is a rough season, and I am just tired of fighting. I'm tired of trying to sort things out, and I just want, God to just be God and be sovereign over my life and just help me. That's just kind of the point I got to, is just help me. And all of a sudden, I went into this vision where I was standing in a room and I could hear singing, and I saw Jesus, and Jesus was singing, but it sounded like Anthony Skinner. And the crazy thing is, I wasn't, like, I felt like I wasn't even in the sanctuary anymore, and I couldn't hear anybody around me. I couldn't feel or sense the people around me, but I could see Jesus, and I'm hearing singing, and I'm seeing his mouth move, but it's, sounding like Anthony Skinner. And Jesus is walking and getting closer and closer to me, and I started feeling a little bit scared, like, I don't know if this is okay. I mean, what if he gets, what's going to happen? Is he going to get really close to me? And just feeling that like unworthy, or just not knowing how desperately he wants to just love me and be close to me. And as he's getting closer and closer, my heart is racing, and he finally gets right up to me, and he just grabs me, and he just hugs me and holds me, and I just collapse in his arms, just bawling and bawling, and he's just singing and singing and singing over me. And as he's doing that, I could see the music, the song, I could see it coming out of him.
So now remember, Jesus is singing, okay, as he's hugging her and kind of loving on her, and she's seeing the song come out of his mouth, almost as a physical thing here. So, just a question: does this sound familiar to Isaiah's vision? Or what about to anything that the Apostle John had in Revelation, where he was so overcome that he almost felt that he almost worshipped the angel. The angel had to pick him up and say, "No, don't worship me. I'm just like one of you. I'm a minister just like you. I'm not God." And yet, the entire book of Revelation, you see nothing of the Apostle John getting hugs by Jesus or anything like that. What do you see? You see the lion. You see Christ as a lion. You see him as the one that is coming to judge. You see the power of the risen Savior Jesus Christ. You don't see him singing and wanting to hug the Apostle John. Weird, right?
It was a tangible light, kind of. I don't really know how to describe it except just say light. And it's coming out of him as he's singing, and it's just wrapping around me. And as that's happening, I can just feel these things just breaking off of me. It just felt like breakthrough. It just felt like all the things that held me down, all the things that get in the way, all the things that were making me feel insecure were just breaking off. And then all of a sudden I had these two questions in my mind. And I wanted to ask Jesus these two questions. And I felt afraid, and I felt embarrassed, and I just felt afraid to ask these questions. And suddenly I hear in the natural, I hear Anthony say over the microphone, "I want you guys to ask Jesus two questions." And I'm like, is this real? Is this really happening? And I feel like I'm kind of in this weird place where I'm in this vision, but at the same time, now I'm listening to what's actually happening in the natural, in the sanctuary. And I'm thinking, this cannot be happening. And Anthony says out loud the two questions I was thinking in my head, word for word. He says, "I want you to ask Jesus, what were you thinking when you created me? And how much do you love me?" And those...
What? And she's right. This isn't happening. She is not having a revelation of the biblical Jesus. She's not having a revelation with the Jesus of the Bible. If she wanted to have a conversation or at least experience that Jesus, she needs to open up her Bible and read about that Jesus. But she's not experiencing the biblical Jesus. I don't know whether it's something that's coming from her own mind, or whether she's lying, or whether she's experiencing a demonic encounter, but she is not experiencing the biblical Jesus. I just want to make that very clear. So anyway.
Were the two questions that were just running through my head the whole time this experience is going on. And I just started bawling, and I was trembling. I was just shaking and trembling because I could not believe that this was happening. It was like someone just read my mind and out loud over the microphone just spoke out to the whole sanctuary what I was thinking in my head. It was the weirdest thing. And so I felt a little bit afraid, but I finally worked up the courage, and I asked him, "How much do you love me?" And I saw him just stretch out his arms, and they just kept stretching.
Now, listen to this part, because this is really weird. They just stretched out. Do you remember the Stretch Armstrong dolls? I used to have one when I was a kid. They were probably way back. This is early 80s, late 70s. You had the Stretch Armstrong guy, and you could stretch his arms out. And actually, in the cartoons, he could stretch those arms and his whole body all over the place. Well, this is what Jesus did with his arms. "How much do you love me, Jesus?" And he just stretched out his arms, just like the Stretch Armstrong doll did. Weird.
And stretching like that Stretch Armstrong doll. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but the Stretch Armstrong doll that just like stretches forever. It was just like that. Just stretched forever. Couldn't even see where it ended. And he just started laughing. And he said, "I love you this much." And they just go on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And to me, like, even just the way he spoke to me, the way that I saw him being like Stretch Armstrong and he was laughing, like, that's just like how I am. Like, it's like he spoke to me in a way that was fitting for me. And he answered that question in a way that was fitting for me. And I was just crying and laughing, and I was just so happy. And in that moment, I was so happy that I thought, I don't want to ask the other question. It just felt like, this is good enough for me right now. I'm a little bit nervous about that other one. I'll just hold off on that. I'll hold off on that. And then weeks later, I I'm going to the prayer house every morning at about sunrise, and I'm just kind of going through the routine. Like, I'm being faithful. I go in the morning, I'm reading my word, I'm, doing all the things that I know to do.
Now, let's think logical here for a second. If I had an encounter like that, or I had some kind of encounter where I've seen an angel, what about like Zechariah in the temple when he saw an angel? The fear that came over him, he was never the same again. So I'm just going to my prayer, just routine. My life is just routine. How can, if that is a genuine vision, how can your life be routine? I would think I was going absolutely nuts. Like I said, this is what our kids, this is the group that our kids, so many of the kids in the Christian church today are grabbing a hold of. These guys are huge, and I'm not joking. They are big, and this is their theology. I'm going to continue with this, and I may not be able to jump in because my time is just running out here. But I am telling you, these guys are. I don't even have any words. They're just ridiculous. Some of the stuff that they say is just ridiculous, and yet the music. Some of their music sounds great, and you think, well, what's wrong with that? Then if their music is okay, if their music is, it's some of their lyrics are fine and theologically correct, why not listen to them? I wouldn't listen to them because this is what they believe. This is their theology. And if the kids begin to listen to it, and if churches and pastors begin to endorse this music, then they might as well just endorse their theology, because the kids are going to say, well, if my pastor lets me, or my pastor, uses Jesus culture music in our worship, then they must like Jesus culture, and therefore they must think that what they're saying is right. And why couldn't God do what he's doing today? So this is why we need to have some discernment when our kids start talking about Jesus culture and they start bringing this music home or bringing this stuff up, and you don't want to slam your pastor. So many churches don't even know. They don't even know singing. Look, I'll be honest. I heard a Jesus culture song in my church. I just found out it was Jesus culture. I didn't even know it. That's how this stuff has just crept in. So what do? You don't go into like a bull in a china shop, but you do warn. You got to warn that these guys are extremely dangerous. Anyway, I'm going to finish with this and let you hear this. Jesus is going to start dancing here shortly. And, again, a loss for words, but here we go.
Wanting to be close to God, never really having some great experience or some vision. I'm just hoping any moment now something's going to happen. And every day is just kind of the same, just being faithful. And this one morning, I do the same thing I do every morning. I come in, I open my Bible, and I begin to read. And all of a sudden, I don't know how to, just like in my mind's eye, I could see Jesus walk into the prayer room. And I could feel it. And just, the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. You could just feel this tingle, like, oh my gosh, he just walked in the room. And I have my back towards where I could feel him walk in. And I feel him like walking up to me, getting closer. And I'm like, oh, and it's that like holy fear where you're like, oh, what do I do? Do I just get down? Do I hide? Do I just jump and hug him? Do I, all these things are running through my mind. And I feel him walk right up next to me, and I'm just trembling. And I hear him say, I want you to come away with me. And I'm like,
I just want you to come away with me. Jesus kind of sounds like her boyfriend there. This is just blasphemous. This is, to me, this is some of the most blasphemous, weird visions. This is probably the most blasphemous vision I have ever heard. And I've heard a lot of people claim to have visions. Well, I take that back. I guess Benny Hinn's 9 and the Trinity is more blasphemous. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is this stuff is just, it's weird. It's blasphemous. This is unbiblical. This is nothing that you will read in the scriptures. The apostles themselves, the ones who wrote the word of God, did not have visions like this.
Right now, And he says, come away with me. And he's like, I want you to ask me that question. And I'm like, the question that I wanted to ask you a few weeks ago and I didn't ask you. He said, please ask me that question. I'm like, no, I'm too scared to ask you that question. He said, please ask me that question. And I felt like
the Son of God, the creator of the world, please ask me that question.